Hello and welcome to my small review on the newly released Post-Trauma, a classically inspired horror puzzle game that has been on my wishlist since 2022. It's been something I've been keeping my eye on for its eventual release, but staying relatively in the dark about what the game is like and about. For full transparency, I was able to get a review copy for this game, and it breaks my heart to say that this is going to be a pretty mixed review on the game. I am going to be as constructive as possible in this video because the extreme likelihood the first-time developers Red Soul Games will see this, and I want nothing but the best for them, especially since there is a lot great about this game and the issues are something that are fixable, both in updates for this game and with more experience for future games. The art direction for this game is incredible and is the biggest selling point in my opinion. If you've watched any of my videos, you know how much I love fixed perspective camera angles in video games. I bring it up anytime I talk about the classic Resident Evil, Devil May Cry 1, hell, I'm even gushing about it in my upcoming video on the Raido Kuzunoha duology. The shot composition of this game is so good. The vibes of walking through the levels is top tier. I've tried to fit some of my favorite shots up until this point as visual representations. While the overall sound design of this game is pretty hit or miss, the sound design in relation to exploring the creepy areas further elevates them to tie the atmosphere all together. One of my favorite instances is right at the start of the game when you're going through these checkpoints in the train station. Just as you're right out of sight of those checkpoint turnstiles, you hear the beeping. Something else is in here with you too. The gurgling, moaning, or monstrous screams you hear in the distance as the camera twists and turns into excellent Dutch angles only makes it more unfortunate when the sound design does fail in cutscenes and some monster encounters. It's like what I mentioned in my review for Gungrave Gore, where there is just stuff missing from the soundscape that makes sequences really jank. For example, in Act 2, there is this shark enemy swimming in the flooded first floor of the police station. If you make too much noise and can't get into one of the rooms or the staircase to hide from the monster, it will grab you. This is how the sequence plays out if that happens. See how this is weirdly lacking any sound effects? I don't know if this is a bug and there is supposed to be something playing here, or if this was just how it was made. Though a bug that I did run into with this sequence is I was still attacked while going through a screen transition, so it left the screen after being attacked at 50% opacity, making it so when I went through the super dark areas near the end, I couldn't see anything. To loop back to the sound issues, there are a ton of cutscenes like this later. There are so many missing little sound effects that should be there that makes it feel like something is wrong when watching these cutscenes. The voice acting is also pretty hit or miss. The main character, Roman, has some extremely weird line deliveries and poor audio mixing. At times, it really sounds like the man they got to voice him does not speak English and was instructed how to say these lines phonetically. He does get better in a few scenes near the end of the game involving his wife, but then quickly goes back to this bizarre delivery, so this very likely is a direction issue. Combine this with the stuttery character animations and sadly it rips you right out of the moment and any tension these scenes are trying to build. This game is very much like Tormented Souls, where the environments look incredible, but the character models really show that this is an indie dev's first game. Roman's beard is always weirdly lit and the human characters just look off. The hair thing is likely a Unreal Engine 5 quirk since Expedition 33 also has this issue, and that too is an Unreal Engine 5 game. The more that the game zooms in on characters' faces during cutscenes, the more likely you are to realize just how out of sync the audio is from mouth movements. The fixed perspective during gameplay does a good job at masking character model blemishes by keeping the camera a good distance away from the character models. When I introduced this game, I did not call it a survival horror game because while I went in expecting this to be an indie dev's take on a Resident Evil and Silent Hill cocktail, it's actually much more of a straight up puzzle game. There is still some combat and boss fights, but it's such a small percentage of this game that you could easily remove the random fights and very little of this game is changed. Like, look how fast I kill this boss. The puzzles are, at least in my opinion, good, and I always appreciate when a game like this requires me to write things down on a piece of paper to remember things or figure it out. There was only one puzzle at the end of the game that I did not like and had an issue with. The rest all give you plenty of information to figure out, though my biggest weakness when it comes to puzzle games kept rearing its ugly head, and that was me interpreting information wrong. So the game does a good job as to giving you clues how to figure puzzles out, but I kept thinking those things were actually a part of the puzzle and not understanding that this is telling me what I should be looking at elsewhere. For example, in the police station flooded floor I mentioned earlier, there is a 4-digit keypad that has 2 blue darts embedded in the wall around it. Upstairs there is a dartboard with different colored darts on it. For some stupid reason, initially I thought that the blue darts downstairs were supposed to be visually matched to where they would be on the board upstairs, to help get the possible missing numbers since there were 2 green darts in different segments in 5. That's where I have to give credit to all the puzzles of this game, because they maintain that, oh, I'm fucking stupid feeling when you finally figure out what you're missing, rather than going, how the hell was I supposed to figure this out? Another cool thing that I like about this game is that while it uses my beloved fixed camera angles, it does swap things up with different characters and segments. If you are watching the video and not just listening to it with it on your second monitor or on your phone closed, you will have already seen that the police station segments are in first person, and there are a few areas near the end of the game that have a standard third person over the shoulder perspective. I like when games mix stuff up like this and try to do more with the medium. It's one of the coolest aspects of games like Nier, and I am always happy that indie devs are experimenting even slightly like this, and I always welcome more to try and follow suit. The big thing that makes this game hard to recommend in its current state and not wait for updates is how buggy the current version is. It crashed multiple times for me, including between cutscenes. This resulted in me missing a cutscene, since when it was trying to load and the game crashed, after I booted it back up, it started the game after that point, loading me in at the start of the next chapter. I'm glad it did not make me do the boss fight again, so I can't complain too much when I was able to just look up the cutscene on YouTube and found out I wasn't really missing much, and that weird jumpiness was just the game's narrative itself, which I'll get into in a minute. The game has an insane amount of pop-in which hurts cutscenes a whole lot. There were multiple times I could not tell what I was looking at, only to realize that the game hadn't properly loaded in assets yet. The frame rate was good, and there wasn't any stuttering or hitching issues that other Unreal Engine 5 games have, so hopefully these things will be tackled in future updates. The story of this game sadly did not click for me, mainly because it felt really jumpy, not quite all over the place, but definitely like there was missing parts and was rushed as it just abruptly ended. I am a bit hesitant to say that the story makes no sense, since there is a good chance I missed some things. Maybe it's because I got ending B, which I don't even know how you are supposed to get different endings, but for a huge chunk of the game you don't know what's going on around you, and it's clearly building to the Silent Hill 2 reveal of your character's tragic flaw or horrible sin they committed. Then randomly a bunch of stuff just kinda happens, and it feels like both interesting bits were just offhandedly mentioned, and suddenly it's as if chapters are missing. It doesn't help that a lot of the subtitles are just wrong. There are a lot of them that either don't match what are being said because they are missing words or putting in extra words that were not spoken. Carlos, the second playable character, is pretty self-contained story-wise. You do occasionally see him in Roman's sections, kind of like how you run into Eddie and the other characters in Silent Hill 2, until he shows up at the end of chapter 4 to talk to Roman, and suddenly this is some magical place with a king, and Carlos implies that he's been here for some time, and that your wife, who looks like a giant spider monster, is like this because of how long she has been here and keeps dying only to come back less human each time. It's such an interesting idea in Storybeat that they don't explore at all. It's something offhandedly mentioned and barely examined. I wish more of the game was on that, instead of just going around solving puzzles with minimal story. Freya, the third playable character, just dumps her entire story onto you within 30 seconds of credits rolling. She has her own trauma and guilt which has brought her here too, but shouldn't we have explored it at all instead of doing it like this? Shouldn't we have seen any of this when playing as her instead of just fetching smelling salts to wake up Roman after a boss fight? In a post-Silent Hill 2 world, I understand how it's nearly impossible not to make a game very much like it narratively. If I was to make my own horror game, it would probably have a story that others who did not have the personal connection to it like I did would see it as indie dev does Silent Hill 2 again. But the end of this game just straight up feels incomplete. You have these two characters that clearly have a story of their own, and the game wants to tell you them to some extent since they shoehorned in Freya's at the last minute, but ultimately they're just kinda there, existing to be woefully underexplored, which is sadly how I want to describe the entire game's story like. Unless you are really fiending for a classic-inspired horror puzzle game with great atmosphere, puzzles, and environments, but with the trade-off of a lacking story with a bunch of technical issues for a reasonable price of $15, then I really can't recommend the game in its current state. I had to go back and add this, but there is a single patch that has come out since writing this review, which is starting to address these issues. So if you are interested in this game still, which part of me wants to recommend it, I'd wait for a few more patches before picking it up. Like most games nowadays, give it a few months to a year and you will be playing an objectively better version than what I played. I really hope for nothing but the best for Red Soul Games, and I am not saying this out of some form of obligation because I got a review code for the game. It is because I empathize with creators. I know how much work had to go into making something like this, even if I had mixed feelings towards it at the end of the day. I'm still going to give my honest thoughts because I think there is something good here. There is promise in the foundation of post-trauma, and I want the developers to be able to reach that. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for watching as always. If you really like my videos, then please leave a like and comment and pass the video around. If you want to see more videos like this and really help support the channel, either become a patron on Patreon or a YouTube member. In my personal opinion, Patreon helps the most as long as you aren't going through Apple, which takes a percentage of its own. But if that is unavailable to you, then YouTube memberships are completely fine. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons and members who really help support the channel. Comrade Video, Mr. Spoo, Harrison, Gnome, Bad Gamer for Life, Sam, Uncut Ninja Dope, Leo, Average Joe 777, Overture Saint, Morgan, Burley, Bully, Chikun Highwin, Densha, Dev Welkin, Fish Kami, Friday Night Fragging, Kevin Velasquez, Maxi89C, Metal Cactus, Medi Not the Bad Guy, MGS Duh, Quartz, Samuel Egan, Sayan Heggy, Scary Dinosaur, TV Head, Vaso, Valetti, Alec Joseph, Ben Johnson, Ben Olberg, Buckets, Chichometrius, Ekfrazo, Hardleg Joe, Leon, Lotto, Neutral Guy, Nicholas Pedinato, Sean the Berserker Fighter, Shisaji, Slemf Tingle, Tabriz Sadiq, Turbo Chicken, and Jacob Hamilton. Thank you so much, everyone. As for what's next, it's either going to be a Psycho Patrol R video, a Transformers PlayStation 2 video, or a video on the Raido Kuzunoha duology. The first two are probably the things that are coming out before that because I do have to play through two 40-ish hour RPGs for that video. And by comparison, the Psycho Patrol R video was just an impressions on the early access, and the Transformers PS2 game is not nearly as long. Follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky to keep up to date with upcoming videos, and whatever ends up coming out first, I hope you enjoy, hope to see you there, and see you next time.